everybody, it's Mrs. Long here. So I am going to introduce to you today the next Year 5 unit. At the start of the year we did quite a lot of geography, so we looked at rivers when we went to Peterborough. We did climate change and sustainability, and then just before we went into lockdown we were looking at a history unit because we started to look at the Tudors, and we went on our trip to Holmby House. We did some dancing and some cooking, and we got dressed up, and we learned all about Henry VIII and Queen Elizabeth I. Now, our next unit is going to be another history topic, except this time we're going to go a little bit further afield because we are going to be studying the ancient Greeks. Now, over the next 6 weeks, we want you to think about this question. What was the ancient Greeks' greatest legacy? Well, before we can even think about answering that question, we need to think about where in time we would find the ancient Greeks. Okay, now according to Google, Greece has been around for about 44,000 years, something like that. So that's a very long time to focus on. So we are going to just focus on a small period of the ancient Greek history. If we have a look at this historical timeline of key events, we can see that this particular one starts with the woolly mammoths dying out in the Stone Age and ends in 2012 at the London Olympic Games, which, if you think about it, is 8 years ago. So you guys would have been maybe 1, 2 years old. So yeah, quite a long time ago now. It feels like yesterday. Now, if we think back to the Tudor times, so the Tudor period started in 1485. Now, if I do some maths in my head, that is 535 years ago. Okay, now on this timeline, you can hopefully see at the bottom it says AD 1509, the reign of King Henry VIII begins. Again, if I do some maths in my head, that is 511 years ago. So 511 years ago, Henry became king. Okay, so thinking about the Tudors and thinking about where we are now, where do you think the ancient Greeks might have fallen on this timeline? Do you think they came before, or do you think they came after the Tudors? Well, I can tell you that we need to travel quite a bit further back in time to find the ancient Greeks. In fact, we are going to travel all the way back to 800 BC. Okay, and on here you'll see that it says the first Olympic Games were in 776 BC. Now, there is a pink dotted line on that timeline, and that is the period of time in history that we are going to be looking at in Year 5. So if we were to think about that in terms of other historical periods that we've looked at over the last few years, 800 BC is approximately 1,700 years after the work started on the pyramids of Giza in ancient Egypt. Okay, 800 BC is 2,309 years before the reign of King Henry VIII. Now, if we do our maths, and some of you might have already worked this out, that means that 800 BC is a ginormous 2,820 years before now, before today, before 2020. Wow. So we now know when in time the ancient Greek civilization was. So let's think about where in the world we might find Greece. So hands up if you've ever been on holiday to Greece. Lovely. Or maybe you know somebody that's been to Greece. So if you have a look at this world map, we are going to see if we can find where Greece is. And the first thing I want you to think about is, do you know which continent Greece is part of? And I'll give you a little hint. It's the same one that we're part of. Okay, I'll give you a few seconds. Can you remember? Europe. We are part of Europe, and so is Greece. There you go. So if I zoom in a little bit for you, hopefully you'll be able to see it a bit clearer. So you should be able to see the United Kingdom because we're little bit bigger than Greece is. Can you see where Greece is? Again, I'll give you a few seconds to have a look. Can you see it? There it is. So right at the bottom. So surrounded by the Mediterranean Sea, and it's near Turkey and Cyprus and Malta and Italy and above Libya. Okay, so you can see as well on the map where we are, hopefully, and where Greece is. Now I'm going to quickly show you a map of ancient Greece, because Greece as we know it today was not always like that. It wasn't always one big country of Greece. Once it was split into city-states, and we will talk about those in a few weeks' time. Now each city-state had their own rules and their own leaders, and quite often they'd start wars between each other because they wanted power. Now you might recognise some of the places on this. Some of them will be the same as modern day Greece. Some of them you might just have heard of. So for example, Sparta. Oh, the Spartans is an exciting topic, and we will be looking at those in a few weeks as well. Who else on there? You might have heard of Athens, maybe Mount Olympus, which is a place. You might have heard of that, maybe to do with the gods. I don't know. So yeah, what you might want to do as a little task is maybe pause this, have a look on Google, see if you can find a current map of Greece, maybe in an atlas at home if you've got one, and then compare the two and see if you can see any similarities and differences. Back at the start of the video, I asked the question, what was the ancient Greeks' greatest legacy? Well, a legacy is something that is handed down or left behind from the past. These are things that have had an impact on the future. So, for example, when we had the London 2012 Olympics, they talked about the lasting legacy of the Games, which was all about encouraging children, and in fact not just children but adults as well, encouraging the nation to try new sports and to learn new skills. And that was meant to be the lasting legacy of the Games, that people would be more inspired to go and try new sports. Now many of the things that we see today or use today or do today have been influenced by our ancestors in ancient Greece. I'm going to show you a video now that comes from BBC Bitesize, a short video, but it'll introduce to you some of those legacies that we are going to be looking at over the next few weeks.
Many of the things that make the UK a really cool place to live were actually invented by the Greeks. We just copied them. Okay, we didn't copy everything, but let's give them a bit of credit anyway. First off, the Greeks gave the world democracy, which we still use in Britain today to choose who runs the country. In ancient Athens, citizens met regularly to vote on the laws that changed their daily lives, using a simple show of hands by all. I say all, women, slaves and foreigners were banned from voting, so not so democratic, really. The Greeks also gave us the Olympic Games. The very first Olympics took place in 776 BC. The only event was a 200-metre foot race, and the winner was a humble baker named Charybdis. As time went on, the Greeks added more events, making it more like the Olympics we know today. The big difference being that the Greeks did it all in the nude. Pretty much invented modern mathematics, sculpture, philosophy, science, and even medicine. And they used some of their new knowledge to make cool inventions like the water wheel, the alarm clock, the catapult, and even the vending machine. Finally, our language has roots in ancient Greece, from the individual letters through to complete words like dinosaur and helicopter. So whether we're talking about language, science, maths, law, buildings, sport, art, or annoyingly early wake-up calls, the Greeks got there first.
So I've done a bit of a whistle-stop tour today of when the ancient Greeks were and where the ancient Greeks were. And it's going to be your job now to focus a little bit more on who the ancient Greeks were. So over the next 6 weeks, we want you to continue to think about that question. What do you think was the ancient Greeks' greatest legacy? Now, every week, just like if we were at school, we will be focusing on a different area of the ancient Greeks. So, for example, this week, our first week, is all about the Olympics. Every Monday, we'll send you out a new video and you can watch the video, go off and do some extra research, and then complete the tasks. Now, the task on the video will be the same tasks that are on your home learning grid on the school website. Now, it's up to you how you record your work. Each week, you can be as creative as you like. It might be that you want to just create a folder, you might have a little workbook at home, you might be doing it on the computer. You might want to mix it up and do a bit of a mixture of things. We really don't mind. Now, at the end of the unit, you will then have to pick one of those legacies that we've looked at and tell us why you think it has had the biggest impact on us today. Now, depending on the situation at the time, we will then either share your work online, so you can send us your work and we'll have a look at it and we will share it and celebrate it, or if we're at school, we'll do the same. We'll make a big fuss and we'll share what you've been up to. Now, feel free to send us your work in between. So if you do want to share some of the things you found each week, then that is absolutely great. You can tweet us on the Year 5 Twitter page, or you have the class email addresses as well, so you can send your work over that way, because we would all love to see what you have been up to. So keep an eye out for those videos, keep an eye out for your home learning tasks, but most importantly, enjoy this topic, because we are very excited about this and we hope that you are too.